What is going on, everybody? We are back here with another video this week. Happy New Year's to everyone, to your family, to your friends, and hopefully you guys are, working on those New Year resolutions. I know for one, I'm trying to do my best here to spend less and obviously eat better. But yes, we're going to go off here talking about Dark Dimension 3. This is the new game mode that everyone's speculating is supposed to be coming soon here. And the character unlock, everyone thinking on their mind is Dr. Doom. It's in Reddit, it's in Discord, it's just floating around right now, and they're thinking he's going to be at least an Ultron level character, if not greater. So hopefully that is true. Fingers crossed. I am definitely a big Dr. Doom fan, and I'm looking forward to that. So let's jump into the video here. We're going to be talking about some of the best characters that I believe are going to be essential for this game mode. And in this one, we're going to be talking specifically about the global characters. So let's get right into it here. So like its predecessors, this game mode is broken up into 16 nodes, just like 1 and 2. Now with the minor caveat that instead of having the same 5 characters that you can use throughout the entire game mode, what they started doing at node number 5 is they started introducing character-specific traits. So specifically at node number 5 to 8, you're gonna need at least 5 characters that are global traits. So that's gonna, obviously that's gonna be another 5 characters. When you get to node number 9, which means it's gonna be cosmic. So 9 to 12 is going to be cosmic, and then last but not least, 13 to 16, and probably the one that's giving everyone the headache the most is the city traits. So with that in mind, that means we're going to need at least 15 characters to complete the game mode at minimum. So right off the bat here, let's talk about, in this video, we're going to be talking about global. So we're going to talk about the 5 global characters that we should be looking at here, and specifically when we're deciding on these characters, you want to just keep this in mind as well here. We're going to be picking 5 characters that aren't just going through 4 nodes, but 8 nodes. So again, you don't want to double dip. I mean, obviously, if you've got other characters in Cosmic and City that you've already have unlocked, that's great. That can also be inserted into that Gear 14, which is in that first 4 nodes. But specifically, if you haven't started and you want a starting point, then what I would highly recommend is getting 5 global characters. And the reason being is, once you complete those first 4 nodes, even if you have a Cosmic or a City character that you're using, you're going to be stumped at node number 5, because unless you got 5 global characters as well, you're going to be stumped. So again, that's why I can't stress this enough. Keeping 5 global characters and starting on 5 globals is probably the way to go here. That's kind of the approach I've been going at, and hopefully that makes sense to you guys. And I mean, just talking in terms of trying to maximize our potential here, we're talking about the 5 specific traits. So we're talking about Bio, Global, Skill, Mystic, and Tech. And specifically, if we're trying to minimize the least amount of characters for this game mode, because as you'll realize, the resources to get a character from tier 13 to tier 14 is insane. So it's going to take time. It's definitely not going to happen overnight. And for sure, if we're going to trying to minimize our traits, we want to make sure we can minimize the least amount of characters per trait. And the reason being is we want to minimize the amount of character resources to buy. So again, if you're buying, for example, let's say 10 bio characters and 5 global, and you're just trying to focus on those types of characters between the 15, well, you're going to run into issues, because you're going to run out of other, you're going to run out of sigils, you're going to run out of the what is it, the Venom stuff? I forget the name of it. We'll take a look at it in the next slide here. But like I said, in order to allocate those resources effectively, what you want to do is you want to minimize the least amount of characters for each trait. So again, if you're just stacking Ultron, Minerva, Shuri, I mean, those are 3 tech right there, and you're going to be overly focusing your resources on tech gear. And then obviously the only way we can get these resources is in the gold store and in the war store. And if you're just focused on specifically all your baskets, all your apples in one basket, then that's going to be a problem, and it's going to definitely damper the process, especially if you're trying to get into this game mode when it does get unlocked. Hopefully that makes sense. Obviously, we're just trying to go for efficiency here, and I mean, in the best case scenario and textbook, we want to go for at least 3 characters of each trait, so that way it minimizes the amount of resource spending. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Okay, so moving on. So in this one, we are going to be talking about global, and we're going to talk about the characters that I believe are essential for this game mode, and specifically the ones that we can basically start gearing up and kind of focusing you know, tearing up and buying the resources for as well here. So we're going to look at the ones that I consider to be essential, and then we're going to look at some ones that I strongly kind of recommend. And obviously that will depend on how many red stars, yellow stars, and also depend on, you know, if you have them gear 13 already. So obviously that's going to obviously change depending on who you are, but again, I'm still going to recommend them, just give you my rationale for them, and hopefully you can kind of see where I'm coming from. Now, before we begin here about the characters, let's just briefly take a look at the mini uniques. And now by this standard pattern, this is courtesy of msf.gg, as well as other content creators on Discord that created this. So again, this is such a great document, and it kind of overlines basically the resources for each of the global characters. So as you guys will see there, some of the best characters here you're gonna need more resources for, and some of the ones that are kind of crappy, for example Shield Trooper, you don't need any resources for. So definitely things to consider depending on where you are. Again, that's going to change depending on how many red stars, yellow stars, and on top of that, if you got them gear 13. So obviously that's going to dictate some of your decisions, but I figured I'd show you guys just a brief overview of the characters we're going to be looking at here. And again, it's very nicely organized between Bio, Mutant, Mystic, Skill, and Tech. And by reading the top of the legend there, 30/75. So I mean, if we go down to Tech, that basically means you're going to need 30 of the ores, then 75 of the nanites, and then obviously 75 of the conductors as well. So that's the pattern, in case you guys are a little confused on how to read that chart. Anyways, let's move on to the first character, and one of the best ones in the game, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone here. It's Ultron. He's going to be essential for the first 8 nodes. I've got him there. He needs basically max resources, so he's going to need the maximum amount, which is 5 pieces, aside from the ones that has the you know, his adamantium. So again, he's going to need 30 of the ores, 75 conductors, and 75 of the nanites. And with his abilities, he's so good already. Just T4 everything. That's why I've got them there. Just T4, get him as high as you can, level him up to 75, and then obviously as well, get his adamantium. That's what he needs to basically get him up to tier 14, aside from his mini uniques. So make sure you guys are collecting that when you see it in the store. And I don't think I have to really talk too much about him. He dominates in every game mode. There's nothing really wasteful about putting your resources in Ultron. He's end game. He conquers every game mode: Blitz, Arena, War. He's amazing in raids. He's just great in every game mode. There's nothing I can really else say about that, other than, you know, once you start getting his resources, start investing in him, because you are definitely going to need him for this game mode. Next one we got is Phoenix. This is probably, in my opinion, the second best character in the game, right next to Ultron. I would say you can probably T4 every one of her skills as well. Get her as high as you can. She can be red star, which is really nice, so she has that potential to have higher power than Ultron. She does a ton of damage. She needs 24 of the astral, which doesn't really compete with some of the other characters, which is really great. And on top of that, best part I think about Phoenix is she only requires 18, 45, 45 of her mini uniques. So again, in comparison to Ultron, that is actually less than half of what Ultron needs, which is just amazing. So again, she is probably going to be one of the first characters you get up to T14. I know for me, I'm only missing 2 pieces, basically her pieces that require her astral, and then one of the other mini uniques. But again, she is going to be very easy to get up to tier 14, and for sure, don't feel bad about wasting resources, because she dominates in the arena. She dominates on blitz. You can even auto blitz with her. I love doing that. She dominates in raids. Yeah, she's not sustainable in terms of her health. When she drops, obviously that character ends up being dead, but she always does a freaking buttload of damage. She punches holes wherever she goes, and even in Fear the Darkness or Dark Dimension 2, every time I throw her on a boss node, she punches holes and gets it done. So again, she is an absolute monster of a character. Strong attack, decent resistance, decent damage, decent defense. But again, the best part of her is her life draining, her second ability, which just drains everybody's health and heals. This does a percentage of their health, and I can't imagine this not doing a punch in those nodes for Fear of the Darkness, or sorry, Dark Dimension 3. So she's gonna pack a punch, and she's gonna deal a ton of damage, and definitely one of the best characters, especially given how low of the mini uniques she needs. So again, guys, she is definitely what I would highly recommend as an essential character for that game mode. Next one, we got another essential, and it's Nick Fury, and he is also another beast. I would consider him to be a very, very strong third or fourth character, best in the game, just because of the fact of his utility. He can provide very strong attack, defense up, passing buffs off. He's also pretty good in arena as well. Right now with war, he is amazing with Agent Coulson. So again, you are not wasting resources on him. Only drawback to Nick Fury is the fact that he does require 30, 75, 75 of his mini uniques, and just as Ultron is costly, he is also very costly. I would also consider him to be, you know, a very good character in all the other game modes. You can use him in raids quite well. Not in Ultimate 7, not as effectively as in Ultimate 6, but still very good in Ultimate 7 depending on who you pair him with. But again, very good in Blitz, very good in Arena, and very, very, very good in War. So again, definitely not wasting your resources there. Only drawback, like I said again, is the fact that he costs a lot. And I mean, if we're comparing him with Ultron, do I consider them, you know, I would say maybe he should cost 4 or 5 pieces, but definitely not the maximum. So obviously he needs at least, you know, every single piece there, aside from the fact that his superior serum is on the 6th piece. But again, his superior serum, nice thing about that is it doesn't really compete with other characters. So again, very nice. And he's skill. So again, we've got 1 tech now. We've got 1 mutant / global, and now we've got 1 skill as well. So we've kind of filled up 3 of those 5 categories already, which is great. So aside from that, let's take a look at the brief chart again. And like I said, you guys will see that Ultron, Nick Fury, and Phoenix, where they're located. And you guys will see that Phoenix is significantly less than the other 2 characters that I talked about, but I would still consider them to be essentials. And as I already said, they're great in all the game modes. You want to double dip as much as you can. You want to get characters that dominate in every game mode, so that way you're best utilizing your resources. So hopefully that makes sense. So now, what do we do about the other 2? So what about the other 2? Well, now I'm going to provide some recommendations to you guys, and you guys will notice right now there's a lot of choices. There's a ton of characters to choose from. So I mean, again, that's gonna, like, I can't stress enough that it's gonna change depending on where you are in the game, who you have T13, who you have red starred, who you have yellow starred. Again, that's gonna change, but aside from that, I'm going to provide some strong recommendations and ones that I would definitely pick if it was me, and definitely ones that I'm going to be working towards just because of the fact that I've got them geared up, I've got them tiered up, and I've also got them kind of leveled up to 75 as well. So that's kind of dictates some of my decisions. First and foremost, let's talk about resource efficiency, and that's if you're deciding to pick characters that are going to cost low. So I mean, right off the bat here, you're going to notice that, you know, aside from Ultron and Nick Fury, we already picked pretty much 2 out of the, you know, 4, 5 biggest resource efficient costly characters. So you guys will see that, you know, right off the bat we can kind of focus on less resources now. So I mean, we've got quite a bit of a pool to still pick, but I mean, yeah, aside from that, let's take a look at Bile. So those are our remaining traits, and if we want to go by that rule where you want to minimize and get at least 3 of each character trait just to maximize your efficiency, definitely something to consider. I don't know about Graviton. I mean, I rarely know anyone that has him 7 stars, but definitely right off the bat, I'm going to say he's a no-no. For sure, some viable ones for sure is, you know, it's going to be definitely, if we're looking at the lower pool here, we're not going to include the AIM minions there just because of the fact that they're not gonna have too much synergy, so why have them in there? On top of that, they're kind of lousy in some of the game modes. They might be good in Blitz and Alliance War, and that's pretty much it. I mean, don't think I would slot them anywhere else. So again, you want to double dip as much as you can. So that only leaves with ones that are playable. So we got Yo-Yo. She's quite new, but again, I don't know anybody that's gonna have her 7 star. Winter Soldier, he's okay for DPS, but other than that, he's not really good in any other game modes, so definitely not ones to consider. So that leaves us pretty much, and if you guys haven't already alluded to, that's the 18-45-45 bracket there, which, I mean, we do have some very viable bio options. So for sure, Hulk, I think if you got him high enough red stars, definitely something to consider. He removes buffs. He gets a speed turn filled pretty much when he drops below 50, which is nice. And on top of that, he forms a nice taunt if you need a taunter for that game mode. And then, you know, he's good overall in some of the other game modes, like, for example, in War. And I actually do enjoy playing him in Blitzes as well. But again, you know, that's going to be it's something that you guys will have to consider. Captain America, definitely one that I'm gonna consider for sure. I've got him tier 13. I used him in Fear of the Darkness and or Dark Dimension 2, and he was very good. He provides energy, defense up, and on top of that, he has a taunt. So definitely one that's going to be one I'll be talking about later on for sure, but definitely one to consider. Quake, again, I feel like she would need Black Widow on there, so again, definitely not one I would kind of consider. But you know, for sure, if you guys have her 7-starred and red starred, you know, definitely one to at least consider. You know, she can provide slow and definitely some debuffs for you know, for that game mode. And we don't really have Red Skull, so we're not going to talk too much about him. Next off, Mystic. For sure, you know, I think for sure this one is an interesting category because of the fact that we have Juggernaut and we have M'Baku in there that are potential taunts, but they're, you know, for Juggernaut, he needs Magneto in order to have that 2-turn taunt, and on top of that, his turn, you know, his energy, his abilities require a lot of energy, and that might be something to consider to be a drawback. So again, that's going to have to be, you know, up to you guys depending on where you have him, either T13 or Red Star, that sort of thing. Other ones, maybe Elsa in terms of DPS, but again, I can't really say for sure. A lot of people have her 7-star just because she was part of the event. And Scarlet Witch, again, one that I wouldn't consider to be, you know, too, you know, she can provide some health, you know, reallocation, and then obviously the reflect would be nice, but I don't know how she would pair up with these game modes because of the fact that she is quite squishy, and on top of that, she works better with a supernatural team. So again, definitely not one I would kind of see as a viable option, but that will probably depend on what option, what you guys have her as. Maybe 7-star, maybe. Black Panther, again, very squishy, and I can't see him being very viable because, you know, for him to fill his turn meter, he needs to get a kill. And I just don't know about that game mode. It's going to be very, very heavy in terms of their health, especially in Dark Dimension 2. You saw how powerful some of the characters were and how big their health bars were. And that's why Minerva shined, just because she did a percentage of the health. So again, something to consider. That leaves us with Mutant. This is another one I'm going to have as a choice here. I know we already double dipped with Phoenix, but I'm going to talk briefly here about Colossus, Psylocke, and Storm. They form synergy with Phoenix, and I should also briefly mention that once you guys see my other videos, you'll also realize there actually isn't very viable options, remaining viable options for the Cosmic and the City traits in terms of mutants. So you're going to realize it's actually better to use up your 3 mutant traits if you're aiming for that efficiency, trying to aim for 3 of each trait. It's actually good to use up your mutants in this category in global because of the fact that the other 2 traits, in City and in the Cosmic traits, they don't really have any powerful mutants, not as powerful as the global traits. So again, that's gonna definitely dictate some of my choices for sure. And on top of that, if you were looking at Juggernaut as a viable option, well, there you go. There you go. You can go for Magneto. I think definitely they're going to strong a very good pair. And I know in Fear of the Darkness, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Fear of the Darkness, I use Magneto and Juggernaut very extensively, and they were very, very effective together. So again, as long as Magneto, you know, can land his blind, that provides a little bit of sustain. And then once Juggernaut lands as a taunt, you've got 2 turns of solid protection. And he took a beating, and he was like, yeah, he was very effective in that game mode. Lastly, we'll leave here is skill. So again, we've already got Nick Fury there, but if you want to find another cohesive pair with synergy, Shield Trooper doesn't cost any of those uniques. So again, that's definitely something for me to consider. And again, if we're going with Quake, I mean, you have Black Widow, you've got Hawkeye is there as viable options. They are fairly cheap, and I consider them to be, you know, pretty decent in some of the other game modes as well here. Black Widow I use more extensively in Blitz and War, so she's very good. Hawkeye not so much, but again, if you want to kind of move towards that other category and you had more of those materials, then for sure we could look at shield security for extra taunt, extra protection. Shield Medic, definitely one to consider as well. She's also really good in Alliance Wars, and she's good in Blitz, and she's also good in the raids. So again, double dipping, very, very effective. So now let's talk about some of the recommendations I did briefly mention, but again, a little more in depth. So again, definitely one I'm going to consider for sure is Captain America, just because of the fact that I do have him gear 13. So I've already got him 13. He's fairly cheap. So it's 1845 for the mini uniques. So that means he only really requires like pretty much three of the pieces. And other than that, he provides energy, he provides taunt, and he provides a decent amount of, he provides that debuff as well with a shield toss. So again, very, very good in terms of utility. And as I said before, if you wanted to look for synergy, he actually pairs quite well with Nick Fury as well. So again, definitely one I'm going to consider for sure. And if we're looking at those remaining traits, he's bio, he fills that niche, and for sure, definitely going to be a viable option for me for sure, just because of his low cost efficiency. That will depend, maybe if they have newer characters or better characters, maybe that will change my choice. But for sure, I'm definitely going to consider him as a viable option. Next one, we got Juggernaut. Again, you guys just heard me rant about how good he was paired with Magneto in Fear the Darkness 2. So definitely another one I'm going to consider. Yeah, he's a little more costly for sure, but he fills up that Mystic trait. So again, if we're looking at filling those traits, if I'm going for efficiency, definitely going to be one to consider for sure. Something I should also talk to you guys about here is when we do talk about the cosmic traits, so that's from nodes number 9 to 12, they actually require a lot of Mystic trait characters because a lot of the Mystic characters share that cosmic trait. So again, that's definitely something to consider if you guys do decide to go with Juggernaut, or if I myself decide to go. Just something to consider because there is a lot of Mystic characters in that trait category, and for sure you want to make sure if you're trying to save these resources, definitely something to consider for the next nodes after global. So for sure, if you want to save your Mystic until then, by all means do that. But if you feel like you want to use it up and you got an ample supply of your Mystic trait categories, then for sure this is definitely one to consider. Colossus, definitely very up there with Captain America as well. Very strong option because of the fact that he's another mutant. He's a little bit more costly than Phoenix. He'll require 4 pieces of the mini uniques, but again, I feel like he is actually one that is very, very viable in all the game modes. I love using him in Arena. He pretty much protects my team from a Phoenix ult when he brings up the deflect. If it wasn't for his his taunt that brings out the reflect, my characters would get wiped. So definitely one that's good for Arena. And then on top of that, everyone knows he's good for he's good for the other game modes like War. He's good in raids as well for punching those big holes with Phoenix. And he's also very good in Blitz as well here. So like I said, very viable in all the other game modes. So definitely a very powerful option. I've got him Gear 13 as well, which is really nice. And you guys will also see you need 24 of his titanium alloys. Again, there isn't much character competition for that resource. So definitely another option why I'm considering him. And for sure, I think I've got 18 or 19 pieces of that alloy already built up. So again, very nice when we don't have to compete with other characters. Last but not least here, and very highly recommended as well here, and definitely one I'm kind of pursuing, is the fact that Scientist Supreme has been very effective. I've used her in Arena, I've used her in Blitz, I've used her in raids now, especially in Ultimate 7. She is pretty much the essential character in Ultimate 7 right now. You need her paired with Ultron. They just form a very powerful core, and because of that synergistic effect of enemy tech, or villain tech, or whatever category that was, she forms a very nice pair with Ultron. And again, aside from that, I mean, on top of that, she's very cheap as well. Yes, she requires tech gear, but she only requires 1845 of that, and that's pretty much as costly effective as you can in terms of minimizing that. And she definitely, I think, personally for me, I think she's more valuable than Nick Fury at this point in this game mode. And the fact that she costs a fraction of what Nick costs, you can't ignore that. So again, guys, it's just too good to pass up. So that's what I'll leave you guys with here. Like I said, you can take another look here and you can see that if you are looking at these mini uniques, there's a ton of characters to pick from, and that's going to, again, I can't reiterate, it's going to change depending on who you have, red starred, yellow starred, etc., and depending on who you have Gear 13 as well, depending on what you might have used in either Fear the Darkness or even Dark Dimension 1. So whatever you guys have unlocked or red start or whatever. Again, like I said, guys, hopefully that's kind of helped you guys out with that direction. What we're going to talk about next time is we're going to talk about cosmic characters and the ones we're going to be using from nodes 9 to 12. Some of the ones that I'm going to say that are essential, and definitely my recommendations as well here. But I'll leave you guys with that. And hopefully you guys found this useful. Other than that, guys, stay warm. Happy New Year's again. And as always, guys, thank you for watching.